Okay, I want to find out. I'm curious of this. It happened while you were teaching class.
It happened the night before the dance class while we were making the choreography for the dance.
Because if it happened during class, I wonder if you instructed them, don't do that.
And it also happened during class too, a couple of times. But I had a partner, so we were dancing and then I just fell, and everybody was crowding all over me.
And the best part is it was taken. There was a little video at that part.
There was a video. It was.
Oh,
Yeah, she was
okay.
smiling.
I didn't want that kind of attention.
Did you put it on the internet, the video?
Oh, the dance video, the
It's
real
on
one,
YouTube
yes.
now. Just kidding.
Wanna see? We have a lot.
Yeah.
We have a lot of videos.
What did you tell your students about this?
Well, they know that it was an accident. It happened. They know that the night before the actual dance class, I already kind of because I was wearing a band during the actual dance class, and I should not have danced, but I still danced during the actual class, and then it triggered it again, and then it happened a lot of times, and that's when I decided to really get an MRI.
So did you give the students any information on
I don't know. Yeah. No, I feel like we were in a
Almost.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's nice.
Can I see this?
Yeah, it's like a private, so it's not everybody can see it. It's just the one that invited one of our friend. Uh,
From Philippines.
so yeah, there's one Philippines. Yeah. Oh yeah, send it this to your mom, babe.
Hmm?
Send it to your mom.
They're sleeping now.
What time it is in Philippines?
It's 11 p.m. 10:45. No, 11:45. No, 10:45.
10:45.
I like your shoes, man.
Hmm?
I like your
Thank
shoes.
you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where you bought that?
It was a gift from a, it was a gift from my graduation.
I like it.
Oh man, Jesus. So I'm waiting for see someone else. Oh, they are
They're gonna be there later on.
by now it's just wait a minute. Adrian.
Yeah, that's Adrian, one of my best friend. He spoke Tagalog at the chat box.
Can we stay here by the defense?
I guess so. I don't know where I stay. Where did you stay last time with Alex? Here in the front.
No, I was in my place in my exam.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you didn't that
No,
is-
because I have the same my exam at the same time with defense of Alex.
Yeah, you took the TOEFL at the same time.
wait, you took your what?
I took the
TOEFL.
TOEFL test.
How was it?
Mm, better than before, man, but it's coming.
So you celebrate that. So it's in progress.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's better.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
I'm not like
You
disappointed.
will,
I
you
feel
will
good.
have time, more time to study.
Yeah. Well, it's like this going there. It's not backing work. So
Yeah, like I need to improve my skills like procedure engagement. Like
that's
And you're speaking and
yeah,
you will take the IBT, right?
Yeah. You think 13 March 30 it's okay?
Mhm.
is it that?
And you're crazy like that. You're talking with Kriza and Kriza too, and you're like, yeah, baby. Do this.
I've been doing that every day, most of my day. So I see computer. So I get somebody. Hey, how you doing? Yeah. What's up?
You know, stop. Yeah, I see the Krisita talking to him, making it. Jeez.
If you
I remember when I was in high school, we had a course where we were taught how to type fast. And I think I failed one of the tests in the course. After that, I was like, I have to practice typing. And then I just learned to type faster than you.
I'm gonna try that these days.
Have you picture it?
Hmm?
They're screaming already.
Hmm. Let's see it. Yeah.
Apin lang tibok ba?
Yeah.
Apin tibok ba dia?
No. Just that's it. That's it. Okay. Exactly.
Krisita, stay there.
Oh.
Thank you.
I like me some.
Dr. Bankston, you don't want to come closer?
You don't want to bet your camera.
na. Isa pa, maski isa lang kakuan. Isa
You're gonna
lang.
start at 9, 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
They have classes. So. Very complete.
Huh?
Very complete. Tanggalin ako nun.
Huh?
Tanggalin ako. Dili lang mo siya. First.
Okay. Tanggal na siya eh.
Tanggalin ako. I'll remove my bandage just for the picture. I'm gonna remove my knee bandage just to take a good photo. Put it back.
Looks like he's still limping a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a problem with like the range of motion, extending and bending it.
Sometimes those things take a while to really
It
get
will.
up.
This one, the full recovery is 1 year. Full recovery before I can go back to dancing. Yeah, it really takes time.
Yeah, I was thinking in come back that if I go, maybe gonna be closed later, right? Or the door gonna be,
I mean, there's food outside.
yeah. But the thing is, I need to go and run my data today. I can do it later, right?
This would be. Hi, Dr. Day. Hi.
Morning.
Morning.
You have to keep away from them, no?
Teka naman, teka.
Can't hear you.
Minister,
You have to keep away from
Yeah,
them.
just-
Hold.
Let's go sit in here. Come on.
You
Somebody.
got allergy? Oh, man, that's common.
Morning,
You
Dr.
ready?
Sandy.
Morning. You sure it's cold? Maybe out.
Could be, but we figure out it's coming from Honduras.
You feel better now?
Little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I was coming back yesterday. So
You ready? And you have my correction copy? Okay.
Yeah, actually, I got early in the thing. It's in my desk. You need it?
Can you ask him to bring it?
yeah,
On my desk, I have a paper there. My thesis. It's just on my desk.
You may need to, so you
I
say
signed it,
correction.
but even all that other stuff,
Okay.
that works great.
Good morning.
I never use that.
I don't think I could do
I don't either, but they have saline nasal sprays, and they work just as well as you can, you know, fluoride or something. I know, it really helps, and it, because before I was using like Nasonex or whatever, and now I just use a saline spray and it works just as well. Sometimes I'll take. There's
Something like that. More than.
Dili mo na kasi matunggan nila, ano.
Hmm?
Sila rin makatulong. Dili na kasi sila matunggan.
Nakamute man eh. Nakamute man eh.
Well,
So, kita rin naman.
unless he's very fast.
On that, you like me kind of dumb and ask questions.
Now, you can ask questions. no
Yeah.
problem. So other days, you
There's
see all.
things I don't understand.
You can ask.
Yeah.
Right.
I got lots of them.
Yeah. Maybe I could ask you.
Ask her first.
You what?
Ask her first.
Okay.
Yeah, it's this time of year, because I'm on a lot of committees.
Because they want you to go out.
Because next week I have to, I'm like, oh my goodness. And then Catherine, one of my students, I'm trying to get to her. But she's already, one paper is published, the other one, it's ready to submit. I mean, so two of her chapters are already pretty much done. I just need to go through a little left review. So I think she's pretty much ready. I just, she's,
Guess I'll make your own plan today.
did you make her mad? I don't think she gets mad.
I think I aggravated the thing about the grass, stuff, the ABC.
Right.
It depends, I know you're right on it, but the way they interpret it, that's the way it puts down.
Well, it doesn't take anything more to put it down correctly than it does to put it down incorrectly. So anybody will put it down correctly. You know what I'm talking. I haven't seen Peter Bentell in a while.
He retired.
Well, I am too.
He retired, went to Washington. He
State.
yeah, Seattle, close to Seattle, and it is Seattle and also close to Oregon State, close by and 1 hour from Oregon medical school. Because it's also very good health facilities inside. So we planned it for a long time ago, exactly. We put a company there, and he's building the house right now. He said he's been there.
But what I remember is a pretty nice area.
Yeah.
You know,
Seattle, beautiful.
it's green, a lot of it anyway, on the Pacific side.
I live, live in Alaska and I very familiar with the Oregon, beautiful place, Oregon, Seattle. Seattle town is beautiful.
I'm in Seattle once,
Yeah.
but it was in the winter time, of course.
Yeah.
But it was still nice.
Portland is a beautiful.
I was
Portland
there.
is
I've
a
been to
beautiful,
Portland
it's
too.
a beautiful town and you don't get taxed. Sales tax, no sales tax.
Which used to have a workboat show up there.
Right, we have a meeting this summer in San Francisco. I've never seen it. Oh, really?
I walked it, I was in a old hotel.
Yeah.
Portland, yeah.
San
Portland,
Francisco.
I've been walking out this space.
New England is especially good.
They had a furniture store or two. And I guess they wanted to advertise as to how comfortable they were, because out in they had that, like the plate glass window, you got raised up a little bit. They had some sofas sitting out there, and they had 2 or 3 women sitting on it, and they, rather skimpy dress show. Yeah, so I guess that was the advertising sofa.
I guess so. See what you can have sitting on your sofa.
Seattle is a more liberal place.
Yeah.
So they can smoke, either
Yeah.
on public.
You been researching this side?
No, that's I don't think you know.
Well, our building is
Smoking
testing,
ain't drink.
for the medical marijuana. Our building is doing testing for that now. And so they had to put in high security, cameras and vault and all this stuff now.
Sometimes we maybe legalize this on the problem.
Well, I don't know. I think they should just
utilize.
I don't have a problem as long as they don't do something like, they're doing with the alcohol, disease.
Take it
Yeah. Needs to pay for it.
Pay for it.
Yeah.
Overdose.
Or if, you know, or if you, go to package list, do that, they need to pay for the truth, but they also need to,
Oh, you got something.
for that.
I need to get something.
Yeah. Other than that.
Ready?
Yeah, as long as-
Yeah, I said, other than that,
They gotta wear it,
They're in the lab.
if they have that,
I think they do.
because that's not the only thing.
Your final slides, the reference list are not correct.
Well, yeah.
Reference, you cannot put a full name. Final list. Only you just last name. Not right, it's not right. You never put it like Subramanian. Now you have to make it clear. And also we have a bunch of population workers, population all that, you can list those names. Because the rest of it are on the last one. Right.
Okay, well,
So you guys are still not covered.
that is a real good relationship. So,
Right.
Franklin and Anderson.
Franklin and there's Alex and
I guess you could say they're driving okay.
all right.
Yeah. They're driving too slow.
Old people driving.
The answer, don't panic.
That usually slows you down.
Slow up.
It slows
Don't
you
look
down. Slows you down.
Really active. But it also, I think, makes you less aware.
And is Alex in on that?
Right. you-
They're here or? All right, so,
There's a lot.
all right, guys, it's 9 o'clock. Dr. Bankston, so we start 9 o'clock now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Sathival. Today we are here listening to Kriza's master thesis presentations and defense. Kriza was joined 2 years ago, and Dr. Jane sent me the application. Take a look at it, whether she's fit into your program. And you can hear me? Okay. All right. 2 years ago. Right.
You can talk loud and stay there.
Okay, all right. All right, 2 years ago, Dr. Jane sent the application package to me, asked whether Chris was fit into my program, and I went through it and I said she's fit, and it perfectly, she did a wonderful job at my lab, and the most important thing, she came to the lab and finished this thesis on time. And in addition to that, she also, part of her research published, presented at IFT last year, won the second place for third place at biotechnology division. And plus, she also part of one of the co-author of my papers and several papers online coming through the pipeline. So she did a wonderful job, and she also very helpful to helping my classes, especially food preservation classes, and also my biological ag engineering classes. She helped me a lot. Also, she helping other undergrad and grad students as well. All right, without further ado, I would like to invite you to give a presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sati. Again, good morning, everyone. I am Kriza Kalumba. I'm a Fulbright scholar from the Philippines, and today I will be presenting my thesis entitled Ale Beer Containing Free and Immobilized Lactobacillus brevis, a Potential Delivery System for Probiotics. Probiotics are shown to improve gastrointestinal health, and in this study, we investigated whether probiotics would survive in beer to render the beneficial effects in the gut. Probiotics are defined by the Food and Agriculture Organization and World Health Organization as live microorganisms which, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit on the host. A concentration of 1 billion colony forming units per ml or gram of food is recommended, and probiotics must be able to withstand conditions during processing and storage, and they must also pass these in vitro tests used in screening probiotic strains, including resistance to gastric and bile acids, adherence to mucus, antimicrobial activity against pathogens, and ability to reduce pathogen adhesion to surfaces. It has been reported that probiotics have beneficial effects on human health, which is why they are increasingly gaining popularity. According to Figure 4, the healthy human gastrointestinal tract is made up of at least 500 microbial species, and probiotics exert beneficial effect in the colon or in the large intestine where they must be viable in sufficient numbers. That's why they must be able to withstand the low pH of the stomach as shown in the previous slide. Probiotics are shown to prevent gastrointestinal diseases. They are often used as a suitable treatment for irritable bowel syndrome. Studies also show that probiotics could improve tolerance to lactose by producing more beta-galactosidase or lactase, and they are also shown to reduce risk for cardiovascular diseases. These are just some of the health benefits of probiotics, and these health benefits are shown to be conferred due to displacement of pathogens and modulation of the intestinal immune system. Probiotics displace pathogens by competing for nutrients and binding sites and by producing antimicrobial agents like acids. In terms of modulating the immune system, probiotics have been shown to activate toll-like receptors, and this in turn leads to high levels of anti-inflammatory cytokines, which then increases the T cells to downregulate the inflammatory responses. While most probiotic products sold in the market are dairy, new matrices are being investigated, and beer is a potential probiotic beverage, as it is the most consumed alcoholic drink globally after water and tea. Alcoholic drinks like beer have been linked to disruption of intestinal microbiota homeostasis because in our human gastrointestinal tract, there are mainly firmicutes and Bacteroidetes, and these alcoholic drinks increase the proteobacteria, which are mainly pathogens, and that has been shown in several studies. But beer with probiotics could be a therapeutic avenue, and it could be used for alcohol-associated diseases. However, alcohol in beer may reduce probiotic viability. Hence, there is a need to support and protect these probiotics. And protection would also be helpful to be able to withstand the low pH of the stomach. One way of protecting the probiotics is through immobilization, which refers to the trapping of a material within or throughout a matrix. Figure 2 shows different methods of immobilizing on the surface of a solid carrier, including adsorption on surface, electrostatic binding, and covalent binding. Immobilization has been shown to improve the growth and survival of probiotics on several food products, so this helps maintain high cell viability despite the acidic condition of the stomach. Several immobilization supports have been considered, particularly preferring natural supports. In this study, the immobilizer used was powder produced from durian rind. As we can see in figure 3, this is an image of a durian fruit. If you are not that familiar with durian, it is called the king of fruit. It has a very thorny outer covering, and it has a distinct smell and distinct taste, which some people like and some people don't like. In this study, I chose durian because it is one of the most highly valued fruits in Southeast Asia. such as in the Philippines where I come from. And only 1/3 of the fruit is edible, and the rind comprises more than half of the total fruit weight. So there is a huge amount of waste that is generated from durian consumption. The common practice today is burning durian residues or sending them to landfills. And this study is conducted to be able to give an economic value to durian rind. So rinds of mangosteen, durian, and jackfruit were used to immobilize probiotic bacteria in a study. In our study, this durian rind had approximately 17% crude fiber, which could be used to immobilize the probiotic bacteria. The overall goal of the study was to produce ale beer with free Lactobacillus brevis or FLB and immobilized Lactobacillus brevis or ILB on durian rind powder as a potential delivery system for probiotics. The bacterial culture that I used was kindly provided by the USDA Agricultural Research Service culture collection. It was grown on MRS broth, washed, and centrifuged to obtain the pellets. The durian fruit was purchased from a local Asian store here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The rind was then removed as shown in figure 4. So this was the durian rind. In this study, we got rid of the thorns. We used just the white portion of the durian rind. But studies show that the thorns can further be utilized in making paper, for extraction of carboxymethyl cellulose, or as an alternative packaging material for biofiltration. In this case, I used the white part, which still comprised 42% of the total weight of the fruit. The rind was then oven dried at 70 degrees Celsius for 20 hours, and figure 5 shows the dried durian rind. This was then ground into powder as shown in figure 6. The powder was analyzed for proximate composition, and prior to immobilization, it was sterilized in MRS broth. Immobilization was carried out by shaking for 18 hours at 150 revolutions per minute. The morphology of the immobilized cells on durian rind powder was then observed using scanning electron microscopy. Figure 7 shows a schematic diagram for the production of ale beer with free and immobilized cells. There are two types of beer based on the yeast strain used. We have ale beer, which uses top fermenting yeast like Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and we have lager beer, which uses bottom fermenting yeast like Saccharomyces pastorianus. Ale beer is produced usually at a higher temperature and a shorter period of time than lager beer. In this study, we produced ale beer because its pH corresponds to the optimal pH of the probiotic bacteria that we used. So first, in a boiling kettle, we dissolved malt extract in water. So this was carried out at 100 degrees Celsius. After the malt extract was dissolved in water, hops were then added for bitterness, aroma, and flavor. Corn sugar was also added to reach the standard specific gravity for the wort. So this entire solution was then called the wort. So this was carried out in the boiling kettle for 1 hour. After that, the wort was then cooled to 21 degrees Celsius because we could not pitch the yeast at a high temperature, they will die. In this case, the wort was transferred to the fermenting vessel. So we used a 7-gallon conical fermenter, and then the yeast was pitched in the beer. So that was at 21 degrees Celsius. Fermentation was then carried out for 2 weeks until the specific gravity was obtained. So at this point, once the specific gravity reached 1.008, then fermentation must be complete. So that was done for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, we already had the beer, and before bottling, we added separately the free cells and the immobilized cells to the bottles along with the conditioning tablet. And then the probiotic bacteria, both free and immobilized form, were in the bottle for for 24 days at 21 degrees Celsius. Figure 8 shows the boiling kettle that we used. At this point, I was dissolving the malt extract in the water in the boiling kettle. Figure 9 is the fermenter, and figure 10 is the refrigerated recirculator or the chiller that we use to cool the wort. For the measurements, we got values for specific gravity, total soluble solids, carbonation, pH, and titratable acidity for the physical chemical parameters. We also measured the viability during storage, as well as that in simulated gastric fluid and simulated intestinal fluid. The aerobic plate count was also measured, and these were done in triplicate, and t-test was conducted to measure the differences, the significant differences between FLB and ILB. And within each treatment through time, we used ANOVA and Tukey's test as post-hoc. In this study, we also explored a new area, which is measuring or determining the microbial diversity of the beer. So we submitted the beer samples to mRDNA in Texas, and they used bacterial tag encoded amplicon pyrosequencing to determine the percentages of bacteria and fungi present in the beer samples. Table 2 shows the proximate composition of the powder, and as we can see, the major dry components of the powder were crude fiber, ash, protein, and fat. If you look at the crude fiber content, it's relatively high at 17%, and this high fiber could be used to immobilize the probiotic bacteria. This fiber is mainly in the form of cellulose, and also that was reported on studies on dried durian rind. The viability of probiotics in the gut, in the colon, must be ensured, and cellulose present in durian rind powder could be used as an effective carrier. Because this cellulose is non-digestible, it reaches the colon, so it can be used as a carrier for the probiotic bacteria. There are also studies that show that cellulose could be a fermentable substrate for beneficial bacteria in the colon, thereby improving gastrointestinal health. It can also be used as a bulking agent for easing defecation. Figure 11 shows the scanning electron micrographs of free Lactobacillus brevis. This was done to confirm the morphology of the bacteria. And as we can see, it has a general rod shape, and this shape was also reported in several studies utilizing Lactobacillus brevis. Figure 12 illustrates the micrographs of cross-sections of the powder loaded with Lactobacillus brevis. And as we can see, the probiotic bacteria were randomly distributed and attached to the powder. And this indicated that the powder could serve as an adherence matrix for the probiotic bacteria. So if you look at C, the powder had rough and uneven surfaces to which the probiotic bacteria attached. So there's an encircled portion in C, and that is magnified in D. So we see that there were probiotic bacteria that attached to the powder. In this case, we suspect that the immobilization mechanism could be covalent binding because the probiotic bacteria have a net negative charge. Lactobacillus brevis is a gram-positive bacteria, so the net negative charge should be due to the teichoic acids present, and cellulose fibers as the immobilizer have net negative charge because of the carboxyl groups present. So there might be sharing of electrons, so we suspect that it should be covalent binding responsible for the successful immobilization of the probiotic on the powder. The specific gravity was also measured as it gives an information on the alcohol percentage by volume of the beer because it measures the density of a liquid compared to water. Using a formula, we calculated the alcohol percentage of the beer to be 4.39%. The average alcohol percentage of beers here in the US is 4.6%, and in the UK it's 4.3%. So this should be an ideal alcohol level for beer. Carbonation was also measured at day 24, and that was shown to be 2.8 volumes. This signifies that there were 2.8 cubic inches of carbon dioxide dissolved per cubic unit of volume of beer. Now in figure 13, we have the graph of the specific gravity of beer with FLB and ILB throughout the storage period. And as we can see, there was a slightly decreasing trend, and this could be due to the remaining yeast and the probiotic bacteria which were consuming the residual sugars present in the beer. If we look at the initial days, there was an increase in specific gravity, and this could be due to addition of the conditioning tablet and the addition of the probiotic bacteria. The trend is the same as in figure 14 for the total soluble solids. So this is in degrees Brix, which measures the total sugar and dissolved solids in the solution. So still, the yeast and the probiotic bacteria must have consumed the residual sugar present in the beer. In both cases, there was no significant difference between beer with FLB and beer with ILB. Figure 15 shows the pH of beer with FLB and ILB. And throughout the storage period, the pH was maintained from 4.3 to 4.4, and that is within the ideal typical range for ale beer. So we say that in terms of pH, the beer had an ideal pH. For figure 16, this shows the titratable acidity in terms of lactic acid, and the trend is kind of in contrast to that in figure 15 because of the production of lactic acid, which then lowers the pH. In both cases, there was still no significant difference between beer with FLB and beer with ILB. So these results show that immobilization did not significantly affect the physicochemical parameters of the beer. Now, figure 17 shows the viability during storage. The conditions in beer are typically not ideal for the growth of microorganisms because of the presence of ethanol, hop acids, high carbon dioxide, and there is very little nutrition present. But in this study, we were able to come up with a formulation that allowed for the growth of the probiotic microorganisms. We were particularly adjusting the amount of hops and sugar added during brewing. And as we can see in figure 17, both FLB and ILB manifested good survival throughout the storage period. The initial counts were 8.9 log for FLB and 9.9 log for ILB, and at the end of the storage period, FLB had around 4.9 log and ILB had around 5 log. Now, if you look at day 0, day 6, and day 12, the immobilized cells had significantly higher counts than the free cells. So at these storage times, we can say that immobilization was effective in protecting the probiotic bacteria. And studies show that the fiber and minerals present in durian rind powder could be helpful in protecting the probiotics. Through time, from day 3 to day 24, for both FLB and ILB, there was no significant difference within each treatment. Figure 18 presents the viability of FLB and ILB in simulated gastric fluid that was at pH 3 and simulated intestinal fluid at pH 6.5. In all storage times, immobilized cells had higher counts, but they were not significantly different from the counts of the free Lactobacillus brevis. And at day 24, after 120 minutes of exposure to both SGF and SIF, both FLB and ILB still maintained a count of about 5 log CFU per ml of beer. So these data signify that even at 24 days of storage of the beer, it could still deliver about 5 log CFU per ml of the probiotic bacteria. Table 3 shows the aerobic plate count of beer with FLB and ILB. The FDA describes or defines aerobic plate count or APC as the level of aerobic microorganisms present in the food sample. And in this study, it was not detected at day 0, day 18, and day 24, indicating good microbiological quality of the beer. The bacterial community composition in beer was also measured using bacterial tag encoded amplicon pyrosequencing. So again, the beer samples were submitted to mRDNA for analysis, and it shows that Lactobacillus brevis was the predominant species present in both types. An interesting information was the presence of Lactobacillus parsimonies. This is an obligately homofermentative lactic acid bacterium that is closely related to Lactobacillus alimentarius. And Lactobacillus parsimonies is also a probiotic, which is known to improve conditions for stress-induced hypersensitivity. Table 5 shows the fungal community composition, and sequences associated with Saccharomyces cerevisiae represented at least 99.9% in both beers. In conclusion, immobilizing Lactobacillus brevis in durian rind powder did not significantly affect the physicochemical parameters of the beer. And beer with FLB and ILB stored for 24 days was still able to supply approximately 5 log CFU per ml. The predominant species present was Lactobacillus brevis, and in general, we conclude that ale beer containing free Lactobacillus brevis and immobilized cells on durian rind powder has potential as delivery system for probiotics. I would like to acknowledge my major advisor, Dr. Subramaniam Satavel, for his guidance and constructive comments throughout the conduct of this research. I'd also like to thank my committee members, Dr. James and Dr. Bankston, for your help and constructive comments too for the paper. I'd like to thank Fulbright Shed Philippines for giving me this opportunity to pursue master's studies here in LSU under Dr. Sati. I'd like to thank Ms. Tamara Shaljinko for allowing us to use the equipment in the biotechnology lab. And of course, I'd like to thank my lab mates from the food engineering and bioprocessing lab group for their invaluable help, support, and friendship. I'd also like to thank God and my family and friends for their love and support. Thank you.
Did anybody taste it?
That already? You know, the Austin.
Would you mind if I sit down?
You please. Did we get a yes? Which one?
Did anybody taste it?
We tasted it. It tasted well.
We tasted the beer, but before the probiotic was added.
No,
You-
not after. I was wondering if it was hazy or cloudy looking.
We did not do sensory on that.
Yeah.
Look, how they look and look.
Yeah, how did-
Oh, how they look like? It looked like normal beer. Even with the powder, because the powder was not, it did not significantly affect like the texture and how it looked like. It was very little powder in there, so it still looked like normal beer. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was an ale beer, it wasn't, that one in particular wasn't that strong, because, ale beers tend to be really bitter, that one wasn't that strong.
It had a crisp flavor. If for those who tried to.
Tastes good. All right, questions? Oh, nice.
So,
Yes.
I saw your study was done for 24 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why you didn't do a month?
Mm-hmm. Because is it okay if I sit down like my ears?
See how so-
At 24 days, the count was already dropping to 5 log, and probiotic products ideally should have at least 6 log. So I did not see that it made sense to continue further because it was already dropping. Alex.
So you analyzed the morphology of the urea and rind powder with the probiotics that you say are immobilized, right?
Mhm.
But would this accurately reflect immobilization in the original substrate, which is the beer with the water added to it?
Mhm.
And if so, how would you measure with an additional method the mobilization in the liquid form rather than the solid form?
Mm, it could have been better to, like as you said, to try to do the scanning electron microscopy on the actual liquid sample without trying it. So maybe that can be done for further research. But I believe that it would not be that different from the SEM that I have here and with that in the beer. That's what I suspect.
Would there be a shelf life of the probiotic in beer?
Um,
How
well-
long will it last?
Because probiotic products should have at least 6 log CFU per ml. So in this case, the storage period was at 24 days because I was trying to go around the 6 log, and at 24 days it dropped to 5 log. So if in terms of a probiotic product, that should be the end of the shelf life already. So
So you
yes,
have
but
15 or 16 days.
yeah, at around 12 days, it was at 6 log CFE per ml. But I just continued measuring just to know how many viable cells were still there. Yes. Yes.
In view of that, last sentence in the abstract, this study demonstrated that beer with FLB and ILB could be a potential delivery system for probiotics. Now, how does that work into, you said you need 10 to the 6 and you got 10 to the 5th.
Mm-hmm. So based on my data at day 12, that 6 log was obtained. But even if after 24 days of storage, I just wanted to say that it was still viable even at 5 log CFU per ml. But in terms of the definition for probiotics at day 12, it was still at 6 log CFU per ml. I just lengthened the storage period just to check how viable they would still be if I extended the storage
So
time.
this would be at 12 days
Yeah, we changed it.
Yes.
or less?
Yes.
Yeah, revised it at 12 days.
Got another question on that.
Okay.
That WHO slide reference, it said amount, not
Uh-huh.
concentration.
Amount.
Did they give you an idea of what that amount would be?
Sorry.
Did they give you an idea of what the amount would be? To me, that amount might be in terms of CFU rather than CFU per gram.
In references, they just mention at least 6 log CFU per ml.
Yeah, but that's not an amount.
Mhm,
When you say per gram, that's a concentration.
mhm.
They changed.
Did they give you a number for the amount, or do you have a number for the amount?
There was one paper that I read. It did not mention per ml or gram. It mentioned 5 billion CFU for 5 days. That in one paper that I read, 5 billion CFU that's for 5 days.
So that's 10 to the 9 billion?
But I mean, basically, they just mentioned the 6 log CFU per ml.
I
As the
guess why I'm
concentration.
asking that,
Yes.
if you've got an amount, so many million, you know how many million you get, or how many you get per gram, you can figure out how much beer you need to drink.
Now,
Yeah.
how much do you need for a milk bag?
Mm. Because this is in concentration, so 1 ml would have that 6 log already.
Just need little mini beers?
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there any recommendation for how much you should drink? And also, if you drink so much of it, is there any way you can get any type of
adverse effect or some type of toxicity?
Yeah, we know that if you drink too much.
Do you know?
Probiotics. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's probiotic, I think that there shouldn't be any problem as long as you feed them with prebiotics a lot. But in terms of the amount of beer, probably that could be a recommendation for further studies to determine the actual amount of beer that would be necessary.
We have someone has to do the animal study and see how much.
I mean, it's not just yours that are in the farm. You see, a concentration, the 10 to the 6 CFU per gram, or 10 to 6 logs per gram. But then they talk in terms of amount. If you look at things like medicine, you know, they tell you how many milligrams or whatever you've got of the active ingredient. I'm not sure how to put the two together.
But since
Yeah, but you know, still, are you
Like,
looking
how much
at,
are you getting in a whole bottle?
you know, are you looking at an amount, or are you looking at a concentration? I don't know.
This particular study, will be very difficult to say how much amount, because this is basically they are looking at the viable. In the second study, someone has to do the animal study and see.
Okay, I don't have a problem with working the study.
Yeah. We don't know, to be honest with you, we don't know. So how much water we have to give, we don't know.
Well, it's not just this study that I've seen. I've seen,
Yeah, that's the way it is, like if you have a protein bar serving, they give a cup of the cup, one scoop, like a 24 gram, they all weigh them. It's difficult to do this. Yeah. How much yogurt, how do you say? Do you have yogurt to say, well,
I don't know. If I
Yeah,
do, I
It
wouldn't have
says
to ask.
contains live.
yeah.
Yeah,
that's all.
there's billions of
We
live.
like, actually, that's all it is, I'm like, there's no way you
That's-
can, yeah, you can, how many yogurt you have to eat, you don't say.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah, it's a good,
How
it's a good question, but
How would you market this?
well, it should have a competitive advantage by marketing it as a healthy beer and a more nutritious beer. It targets the beer consumers, so I suspect that it should be more attractive to the health-conscious beer consumers.
If you get a big like, can you use the medicine thing?
Tough to recommend.
And
In case, in this case, you had a percentage alcohol of 4.39 per volume, why did you decrease the alcohol content? Would it be maybe a higher shelf life, or meaning like the amount of probiotics, the logarithm would stay constant? You
it's
think?
well, it's possible that if we decrease the alcohol percentage because it's a hurdle to the probiotic growth, then the shelf life would be extended. In this case, that's the alcohol percentage of the beer that we got, but it would be great to also explore different percentages at tolerance to different percentages of ethanol. Yes.
How many alcoholics required do we consider a beer?
It depends. Here in the US, the average is 4.6. In the UK, it's 4.3%. So it should be an ideal one.
You thought that was higher? Maybe thinking about the beer, is thinking about doing prohibition, I think you can get near beer.
Yes.
People slow and such, all kinds.
Yes,
So in this study, your study was done at room temperature,
mm-hmm.
and then you were able to say that they lasted till, you said,
4 days, 5 log at 24 days.
okay, for 24 days. How long you think it would last? At least 6 logs at storage, like at refrigerated storage.
Mhm.
How long would you imagine it'll stay at 6 logs?
Mhm. Well, I cannot give an exact value, but I expect it to be viable at a longer time in refrigerated storage because refrigeration extends the shelf life. So they should be viable in a longer time.
The alcohol doesn't affect,
Sorry?
the alcohol content doesn't affect the bacteria.
It should. It's a factor. But in this case, even at that alcohol percentage, they were still able to survive.
the temperature higher than the reaction rate. So it could, yeah.
I think she chose bacteria that's more resistant to alcohol than a lot of those. Did you?
Sorry?
There was something at the beginning about that particular bacteria.
Yeah,
was
this
more
one,
resistant to the alcohol than a lot of other strains.
yes, this one has more tolerance to ethanol too.
I also got confused as to trying to follow, the bacteria through from when you got it as a strain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got it as a strain and then you put it in some type of MRS, I guess, and I believe you said you waited till it kind of stabilized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At that point, what do you have? Something like 10 to the 9?
For the free cells, like right before adding them to the beer.
Yeah, you grow it in the MRS. Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Before you do anything else with it. Now you finished,
Yes.
quote, growing it.
Mhm.
And you got what, something like,
8.9
10 to the
and 9 point, around 9 to 10 log.
okay. Okay, what's the next step that you do with that?
That's when, yeah. So that's FLB and ILB. So the one on the left, this is with the MRS broth. That's when I was growing the bacteria in MRS broth. This is the free cells, the one on the left photo. So this was at 48 hours in the MRS broth. For the immobilized cells, the total was still 48 hours, but after for 18 hours it was immobilized with the powder. So it was basically they still had the same amount of time for growth, both free and immobilized cells. So after that, the pellets were washed. So they were washed twice
Okay, that's the pellets from
from
both
the first one.
ILB and FLB.
Mhm.
Both.
So yeah, they were both
You
washed.
centrifuged them and
Yes,
washed
washed
them. You got
and
the
centrifuged.
concentrated pellet out.
Yes, and then
So
the
that number that you were talking about, like the 10th and the 9th or so, was for that pellet.
yes, this was in solution already for the photo on the right. So these FLB and ILB on the right photo, that's what we added to the beer.
Okay, so
Didn't make it
you
very
added
hot.
the pellets to the beer.
Sorry?
Did you add a pellet to the beer?
Pellets in suspension. The suspension, it was these
But the 10 to the 9th was per gram of pellet.
per ml of the suspension. Sorry. So it was these, the ones on the right, that were added to the beer. 15 ml of those to 285 ml of beer.
So in a sense, that would depend upon how much stuff you suspended the pellet in.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you took that suspension, you put it into the beer.
Yes, sir.
And from what I saw, you were talking about the CFL per milliliter of beer. So it might depend upon what size bottle of beer you put it in, or the strength you got, or the concentration, is that right?
But if it's a concentration, it should not matter how much of beer, because it's concentration.
So if you have 10 ounces of-
Well, yeah,
But if you drink more of it, then you're gonna get more.
yeah, but if I put it in 10 ounces of beer, I'm probably going to get 1 log less per milliliter of beer than if I put it in 1 ounce of beer. I guess it's a,
Yeah.
so, deciliter. What I'm getting confused in is the concentration and the amount of the thing. And which one are you really looking at? Because if I only put it in 1 ounce of beer, I may get that 6 log you're looking for.
But you would just formulate how much you want in 10 ounces or 8 ounces. So if you want, that's how you would formulate it. For her study, she was just studying to see how it survived.
Well,
But when you do a product, you could formulate it in such a way where you know exactly how much they're getting. in that
This is
8 ounce bottle.
this is
Assuming they
study.
drink them.
I understand what you're saying, like amount and concentration. You
Yeah.
keep it concentration, that's the best way to go.
Yes.
Don't confuse amount and concentration, that's why they keep a concentration. Your study is a concentration, not the amount.
Well, I'm not saying that. Even if you look at that concentration can depend upon how much you put into how much. Yeah, but
Regardless, it depends on how much people drink.
It depends on how much fat is in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
now, I don't know what you're looking for, it's a certain concentration that will hold up, and be able to reproduce when it gets into the intestine.
Yes,
But I don't know why that 10 to 6 comes in, and I'm curious.
So 10 to the 6, actually it is come from the daily science people, somehow they say that 10 to the power 6.
Yeah, but
I
why?
have another question.
We don't know, maybe that is a health benefit. Yeah.
Does the probiotic produce alcohol
No, it does
at
not.
all?
No, it just produces lactic acid and
Does it
CO2.
continue fermenting the product?
Well, yeah, you can, but in this case, I just put it and did the storage study.
Yeah,
But
but during the storage, will it still ferment the product?
in this case, there was just production of lactic acid, yeah, but it should not produce alcohol.
So it's changing beer flavor by
It could-
lactic acid formation?
Yes, that's possible, yeah.
Did you look at the pH change then?
The pH was
changed
not significantly.
I've got another comment on this. So, in some places, like on page 30, you give the,
Can you read the questions asked, then you can.
well, this is in connection with the other thing.
Yeah,
You can ask,
do it
it
during the
depends, it depends greatly, yeah. Because others ask questions.
Oh.
Do
Alex.
you have something?
Yeah, to go back to Dr. Bankston's comments, have you reached, say, the maximum concentration that you could get per bottle of beer? I think that's what he was getting at.
No. I don't know if it's the amount or the concentration that you're looking for. And you can change the concentration at the beginning, at least by how much beer you put a given amount of.
Right,
Intent to
but
the
eventually there is a maximum that you reach where you can't have a higher concentration in that specific
Yeah.
sample.
That's when it stabilizes.
Right, so that's what I'm asking, basically.
And they may be killing each other off as fast as they reproduce.
So I think she did reach that kind of maximum, like 9 or 10 logs, something like that, per gram or ml.
I think this is all study about the viability. It is not a over serving the beer. So we are testing our viability.
Yes, but if you look at the abstract, it starts off,
Okay,
you got a reference to the World Health Organization. And it says a probiotic, if you got enough of the stuff. And then you bring in the 10 to the 6th concentration. I had difficulty tying the two together to know which one I'm looking at.
I understand your concern because, that's a recommendation, concentration amount, that's
Concentration.
recommended concentration. That's what we do.
Well,
It
it's not so much as a concern as I don't understand how you figure out, what you're looking for.
Mainly because with probiotics, they want that amount of concentration.
Which one?
I don't think it matters. They want that number of bacteria. Because once it gets into your system, it will drop the pH in your stomach.
Yeah.
You lose a certain amount. And they've shown through scientific studies, through human trials, that they give those beneficial effects.
If we reach it, then about six
Yeah.
lots.
Okay,
That's all, that's what.
I can buy that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to me to go along with amount. which you
We
said.
talk about the amount is different.
Yeah.
The concentration, that's what we are focusing on.
Or just the number of bacteria?
Number of bacteria, that's the easy number of bacteria.
That's an amount, number of bacteria.
Number of bacteria per month, you see, but you have to multiply by. liter.
Not of the bacteria.
When you calculate CFU per gram, or per mil, you're calculating the number of bacteria. One colony forming unit is considered one bacteria.
Yeah,
So you're counting the
yeah.
number of
Yeah,
bacteria.
and if you got the unit CFU per gram, that's a concentration. If you got the units, the number of bacteria, CFU, that's an amount. And it's the recommendation that most of them I've seen, that in reference in the other working papers, is on the concentration and not on the amount.
Then let's stop there. You have any
Yeah.
questions? And then-
Yes, Alex.
So let's say you have the immobilized on the DRP and the free cells. So since, I guess you can see up there, it shows that at most of the storage times, they have similar viabilities. What would be the added advantage of using the DRP in addition to the viability?
Well, in addition to immobilizing the probiotic bacteria, since durian rind powder is rich in cellulose, and studies show that cellulose could also be a fermentable substrate for beneficial bacteria in the colon, then that could be an added advantage for better gastrointestinal health. And as I mentioned earlier, it could also be used as a bulking agent for easing defecation. So those would be added advantages. Yes.
So when you look at the durian rind, you said there's a high content of fiber.
Yes.
You're like basically saying that it's cellulose. Could it be, can be cellulose, lignin, or type of carbohydrate? Do you do an analysis?
Could be. Crude fiber is mainly cellulose and lignin. It was not shown here, but I also tried to measure the hemicellulose, which was also in a high amount, and it's the same. It could be a beneficial substrate for beneficial bacteria, so that would be an added advantage.
Any? Stop. No. So you need some break, or 5 minutes break?
Yeah, sure.
Good job.
Thank you. See you later. Bring the. Oh yeah, there's a lot of snacks in there. Can you give me for some? I have-
Hey, let us know. I can help you move the stuff to the back of the.
Yeah, maybe later. I'm gonna get.
Walk slow, walk slow. I don't
Yes.
want you to go another circle.
Okay.
You know how it is. It's a concentration.
It makes you fall.
USD proposal and try to calculate the weight of the bacteria. It's how much weight and a lot of stuff like that. But nobody care about it because they care about concentration, actually. They care about number of bacteria reaching it, that's all it is.
All they care about is the number of
Number,
bacteria.
for example,
The number of bacteria or the concentration?
The number of bacteria.
if, for example, how do you say, okay, if you have a E. coli, identification, you say this much E. coli in the food will be poisonous or dangerous. The same concern, if you have this much probiotic, it's going to be beneficial.
So if I have 2 pounds, I have this much E. coli, 2 pounds of this stuff, and it's half of what I would have in another sample, in 1/10 of an ounce.
It is not ounce, you're eating that much concern, how much of the number of bacteria are eating here. It's a concentration. It doesn't change.
with the concentration, it would be the same for both of them. If you're saying number of bacteria, that's an amount. It's not a concentration.
All right, so number of the bacteria, how the number of the bacteria get in it? Okay, cannot, okay, number of the bacteria you have it. Okay, per gram, okay, per gram of product, or per gram of the meat.
But they specify how much product you have and how much bacteria are allowed in that specific amount of product.
Do you see what I'm
I see what you're saying, but
I don't understand.
see if you per mil per gram is arbitrary anyways. It's just the way it works. Because one of my questions to her, she may underestimate how many are in the ones that are attached. They're all attached. And separated.
I don't know enough to get to that.
Well, because they stick together. But in microbiology, we always assume that one colony comes from one bacteria, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, you dilute it enough so you get. I guess, well, you pour a little liquid over the top of it.
Yeah, like, yeah.
You don't do something, you don't do something that different kind of swab.
You make solutions, you take the
Yeah,
sample.
and you kind of spread it out.
Yeah, you spread it out. And determine the difference.
I got another. These bacteria that like they anaerobic behavior.
Take the protein away. Get back. Eat 'em.
So I knew it was gonna be like-
Send it.
It didn't show. That's what I'm wondering, because I'm thinking maybe